Welcome to Within You, a podcast for seers, seekers, and skeptics who are looking for support to become more present and learn to lean on your own intuition to guide your choices, to steer you towards your sacred heart. Yo soy Viviana Carrasco, modern mystic and a spiritual teacher, and it is my honor to journey with you, to be in your ear as you take steps towards the calling of your soul. This is the July 2023 episode, which is pretty cool for me because I have a book. Well, it's called Love Being Human, The Key to Harmony Within You. And within the pages, 188 pages, I think, there is an outline to what I am now calling the basic training of learning how to love being human. And from that book, I've had some interesting conversations with folks, and one of them has given birth to what this is, which is what I'm calling Behind the Book. It's a series where I'm giving you a little more to the story. And what I'm addressing specifically today is something that you can find on page 23. And let me read it to you. It says, I've always thought I was wired for unhappiness, that something was wrong with me. But when I started learning about the actual science, I realized we're all wired with a negativity bias that evolved so that we could protect ourselves. A couple of things. If you have any sort of engagement with me outside of listening to this podcast for your first time, me saying that I was wired for unhappiness kind of makes you go, Because I have a nickname of sunshine. I have a tendency to see the world as it is. I don't go for that whole spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity. There is reality, and then you move on. So I also, if you have ever heard of the PANAS profile, it's the positive and negative effects scale. It helps you understand your own natural happiness and what blend you are in that. I'm the cheerleader. So thinking, hearing, reading that I've always thought I was wired for unhappiness, and then seeing me in the world as a cheerleader, as a ray of sunshine, might make you just go, huh? And so what I wanted to do is bring a little more to that story. The more accurate word that I probably would have used now in reflection is the word unfulfilled. So I'm going to replace that in the sentence. I've always thought I was wired to be unfulfilled. That's more accurate because happiness is a fleeting moment that comes and goes. But this fulfillment, this deep fulfillment, is something that always seemed outside of my reach. It's more accurate to say, because I'm happy a lot of the time, that back then, where the context of this book is as I was moving through my dark night of the soul, what I felt like I had was a deep belief that I had to sacrifice my happiness for other people so that it was more important for me to make other people happy than to make myself happy. And when I use the word happy, what I really mean isn't just that fleeting moment of smiles and giggles. It is a deep fulfillment, a sense of completion, I guess is a good word. My upbringing, the culture of both Western American society and Mexican culture had a lot to do with that, right? This self-sacrificing, pleasing others, being an oldest child, being a Catholic, there's everything, there's a whole bunch of ingredients there about not doing me, Vivian, isness, right? Vivi, at her core, because it was more important to make other people happy. A really good example of this is the movie Coco. So if you have watched it, it's an anthem for me. It's an anthem for me that the main character, the little boy, has this burning desire, this almost cellular need to be musical, but it is forbidden in his family, and he does it anyway. And it's a good story. it has a good ending. It has a happy ending because even through the trials and tribulations, he learns information that then brings the family together, and then they all can enjoy music. I mean, that's a really like bare bones distilling of Coco, but it is this leaving in order to individuate and then returning back as a different person. This movie is everything because he follows his heart and he blesses 7 future generations or more. This is what I have come to understand in my own experience. That is now my point of view. There used to be inside of me this deep guilt I used to feel because I left a lot of things. So I left my dad's house, even though there was this, not a threat, but this promise that at 12 years old, if I walked out of his house, then I was making a decision to no longer be his daughter. And at that point, I didn't understand that that was like a reality, but it was true. So when I walked out that day, I no longer could come home and feel at home because I had betrayed him in some way. But I needed to like know someone, like a parent, to know like this is what I was going through. And I thought that I could go to my mom's temporarily, get what I needed, and then come back. But that, for lots of context and lots of reasons was not the case. And so leaving my family then became this wound for me because I left my sisters, who were all younger than me, and over time felt less and less comfortable coming back to visit because my dad would ignore me. And so after I left my dad's, then I actually left my mom because I don't know, I've always been an old soul, and something inside of me knew that being with her at the point that she was in her life was not going to turn out well for me. And so she asked, I probably asked too, I don't know exactly what the details are. Maybe I'll ask my madrina. But she asked my godparents if I could go stay with them in Pecos, and they said yes. And that changed the course of my entire life because that is where I met David, and we got married after that, and we're still married. And so, but I left my mom, I left my dad, and this wound of leaving your family and what pain it causes and the impact that it makes sort of lived with me throughout my entire adult life. And so that's really what I mean when I wrote in the book, I always thought I was wired for unhappiness. Like it was inside of me to not think of myself first because that caused pain in other people is the story I told myself. And so that's a little bit more to the story for that one sentence on page 23. If I were writing it again, I would substitute the word unhappiness for fulfillment, for my greater good. And here's the thing is that you don't know what's best for you because there are so many unknowns and 1,000 different things that could go differently. I still believe that family comes first. Well, I believe in a strong family unit. Our relationship to ourselves and to our higher spirit comes first. Family is important, but there is love always. And so it became less for me of a decision choosing between this or that, and instead going with yes. And too much of our lives can be lived in a sort of black and white, yes or no, this or that. And there is so much more to living than narrowing it down to these single two choices. If you are living moment to moment, if you are breaking the rules of what you know, if you are open to possibility, then there are more choices in front of you. 100, 1,000 more choices in front of you than the ones that you actually see. And the choices that you have in front of you are never, ever, and I can say this with complete confidence, never limited to this or that. And so there's been some healing. And I'll say that this sentence actually symbolizes a lot of what happened when I went through my dark night of the soul, because that was really when I started to turn towards myself. The first iteration of this podcast 10 years ago was turn inward, because I had spent way too much of my life looking outward at what was asked of me. And I never truly asked myself, what do I want? And I didn't really have evidence that what I wanted would serve the greater good. And now, through experimenting and through documenting and through just sort of witnessing myself compassionately, here's what I believe. That when you serve your highest good, it serves others. There's a saying that says a high tide lifts all boats. And so I no longer feel this sense of self-sacrifice in order to make other people happy instead of me. The happier I am, the happier everyone else is that's around me. That's my opinion in this moment. And I'm sticking to it. So what I initially did way back when, about a decade ago, is I recognized that one, I didn't understand myself. I didn't know what I truly wanted. And I was not aligned with my own values. And the reason that I wasn't aligning with my values is because I wanted to be seen by the world as smart, good, and right. But there was a deeper truth within me. And here's the funny thing is that if you're facing this sort of dilemma in front of you, if this kind of dilemma is in front of you, of what am I choosing? What is the decision in front of me? First of all, you don't know all the variables. There has to be some sort of like instinctual trusting that the decision you make, you have to make it right. Like once you decide, right, you move forward. Interestingly enough, 10 years ago, in comparison to now, even though absolutely everything has changed in my life, if you were looking at it from the outside in, it doesn't look any different. I haven't, other than not straightening my hair anymore, really haven't changed my appearance outwardly. I live in the same house. Well, I don't drive the same car, but that's not me. Everything changed without anything being different. And when I talk to folks sometimes, they're debating, right? They're like making a pros and cons list of making big moves in their lives. And I'm not against big moves. I am one of I like to take risks because I trust that all will work out. But what I've seen in my own life is that I don't have to make a big move to see a big difference. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I like to do when I'm working with a client is I like to see their daily routine. I like to see the rhythm of their living. And then I align that with what have they told me is important to them and what are they looking to become? And just layering that over how they're living their daily life. Because you don't make big change in your life. Well, I mean, you could. You really could. It's all, you do you, boo. But what I suggest that you make big changes little by little. I'll give you a recent one. Calling myself an author required me to write a book. Writing a book required me to get my fingers to keyboard, or committing to, conversations with my editor, back and forth feedback, this whole process. And that had to happen. Well, for me, it happened in shifts and waves because it took so long for me to publish the book, but everything is divine timing, right? It took a commitment for me to do things on a daily basis. And if you're wanting to make change, big change, I would say, what is the smallest, tiniest, little bittiest thing that you could do on your worst day in order to establish that rhythm? So if it was, being a writer, being able to call myself an author, is it waking up? Is it, journaling for 5 minutes? Is it, what is the smallest thing that I could do on my worst day, on my busiest day, on the day that everybody's pulling at me for something? How much time can I promise to carve out for myself in order to sit down and do that thing? Because what I'll tell you, and this I've learned this through living my own life, that when I am able to make promises and keep them to myself, I am unstoppable. Literally the confidence and the pride, just the feeling good about myself is exponential. When that promise is as simple as, and this is part of my daily practice, in addition to gratitude, I simply write down, what is my plan for today? And what is the non-negotiable that I'm going to do today? Some days it's drinking a certain amount of water. Some days it's getting a certain amount of exercise. Some days it's pushing record, which was today. And look, I'm here doing it. Do you know that I'm going to sleep better tonight because I made that promise to myself this morning? And before I go to bed, as the sun is setting, I can look back at my day, reflect back on the promise that I made, and see that I did it. So I'm encouraging you to do what you need to do for you, even if there's pain and resistance. But I suggest you could do it a lot of different ways. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Be gentle, be kind, and be compassionate. And ask yourself, what can I do on my worst day that I can continue to do so that you can build that muscle of confidence and you can start to believe in yourself and know that you are going to keep promises to yourself. So that is behind the book, more to the story on what I meant when I wrote, I always thought I was wired for unhappiness. If this is something that you feel like you're going through, this alignment that you need to make with your values, this shift from the outer facing world and what it wants from you versus what your core values are and what matters to you as a person, and you want to be guided if you feel like you need support, if you feel like you're stuck, if you don't know what to do next in order to make things happen, or you're just feeling impatient with the progress that you're making over time because you're just doing it on your own, I'm here to help you. I want to be your guide if you're ready to start to feel deeply connected and confident in yourself, in your intuition, in your inner wisdom. That's what I'm here for. There are several ways that you and I can work together. If you look at the top right of my website, there's different ways that we can work together if you click on the mentoring tab, or you can just reach out to me directly. Call or write 760-576-5683. That's 760-576-LOVE. I will get that, and I'm ready for you. Yo soy Viviana Carrasco, modern mystic and spiritual teacher, and thank you so much. Adios.